Are you happy? Are you deep down satisfied with the person you are, how you're living your life, and the future as it appears today? Do you have a passion? Is there any one thing in your life that is so important that it makes prioritizing everything else simple? If the answer to any of those questions is no, do you have any idea why? Welcome to the Veramore Speaks podcast. I'm your host, Dawn Keegan, co-founder of the dating app Veramore and the nonprofit app Hero Harbor. Happiness, mine and that of others, is something that's always been very important to me. I've devoted my life to understanding how we take the things life throws at us and combine that with our own special gifts to come away with an experience that, while not always perfect, is one we are proud of and allows us the fewest regrets and least amount of heartache. Whether through my personal musings or conversations with guests, the aim here is not to find a one-size-fits-all to-do list of change, but instead a mindset that lessens our fear, reduces judgment of ourselves and others, and frees each individual to build the life that truly represents happiness for them. Thank you for joining us on the Veramore Speaks podcast. I've always worked to provide the most honest, helpful content I could in forms that reach the largest possible audience. And my extreme dislike of greed-driven organizations means I do so without ads or sponsors. But for us to continue improving with better guests and more consistent production quality, we need your help. If you have found any value in what we do and the content provided, please show us a little love by making a contribution directly to the podcast or as a tax-deductible donation on the heroharbor.org website. Thank you again for listening, and please enjoy the show.
Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls.
Welcome back. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Jason Jean. He's the founder of Tattered Beans. Coffee. It seems like it's everybody's drug, and I don't do it. I am 52 and I'll run circles around most 25-year-olds, so I don't do coffee. You do not want to see me on coffee, very bad. So, but
you'd be a little zinger.
I made the mistake one time of we were getting triple calf.
Yeah.
No, I drank maybe half an inch and I was flying high the rest of the day. No, Dawn is plenty irritating otherwise. But anyway, thank you, welcome, and this is especially exciting to me because now, what's your relationship to the young lady who reached out to me?
Amanda. So she's like my right hand in my companies. Okay. So she's been with me almost 5 years.
Awesome.
So she, basically she's like my right hand.
Right.
You know?
That's awesome. Well, she reached out to me, and that's a first, I think, that somebody actually requested to be on it. And that was it. There's so many people who have agreed, and we haven't gotten to it, or that I've reached out to. But that was the first. I was very pleased. I don't know how she found me. I don't know how most people find me, but I'm just thankful. So, anyway, again, thank you. And so
very good at what she does.
That I tell you, I cannot wait till I have somebody. That's if I just had somebody to walk around and take notes of everything I think of, the people that I'm introduced to, my world would change. Oh my gosh, yes, I look forward to my Amanda day. So,
at any given time, 4 to 5 notebooks going.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
On what phone call I'm taking, or what task she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
It could be anything from the tattoo shop, American Anvil, to, the coffee, or we have a couple docu-series that we're doing.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Oh,
yeah. So
this is such a veteran thing. This overachiever have to have 90 things going on. I love it. That's been a consistent theme throughout the interviews that I've done is
we have to be an entrepreneur because we can't work for other people. One of the guys said, he says, I am the worst boss. I'm like, oh yeah. He said, at least now I can bitch at my boss and it's all good. I said, yeah, I'm the worst. I am so hard on myself. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But yeah, I love it. We just don't know how to do anything else. So
critics.
Okay, so tell us your story. Tell us first of all how you ended up in the branch that you did, and I'm really curious about that because it was suggested to you according to your bio, and so I'm curious as to why your dad said Air Force. But
so after I broke my ankle in college playing football, and just wasn't, I didn't have the same capabilities as I did prior to that, so I left school. I was at Midland Lutheran out in Nebraska and went back home and went back to bouncing at the local bar.
Yeah, they're only going to be able to hear this. They're not going to be able to see you unless something changes. But if you guys could see Jason, he looks like a bouncer. He looks like a football player. He looks like somebody you don't want to piss off. So just, yeah. So anyway. But he's got an amazing smile and a great laugh, as you can hear. So it's all good.
My wife always said I have that look in my eye. So
yeah. Oh yeah. It's a special kind of crazy. Oh yeah.
It is. So there was one particular night that there was a bar fight that had to be taken care of, and when I got all said and done and went home, and my dad looked at me and goes, "Yep, you're done. You gotta get out." And he said, "You're going in the military." And I was like, "Okay." My dad was in the Army, and so went to the Air Force, and Dawn, I gotta tell you, I loved it. I mean, it was the structure I needed. It was, and I had that through high school sports and all that to begin with, but we grew up, lower middle class. My mom and dad were extremely hard workers. They provided for the family on what they could. I was the mistake of the family. No mental harm done, mom and dad. My dad's been gone for going on 20 years. Died of cancer, but my mom's still around, and so they did the best they could for us. She worked in factories in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and my dad was a welder, and he was on the road a lot. So I always had their work ethic that was instilled, in us. My thought process was when I got in the military that, I took my leadership that I built in sports, and took those and built off of those and became dorm chief and red rope of our flight. And I just loved it. I mean, it was everything that I needed in life. And
how did you choose the Air Force though? If your dad was Army, how did you choose Air Force?
I don't know. It wasn't, I can't remember why I chose the Air Force. Cause that was literally the only recruiter that I had talked to.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't talk to any other
recruiter. When were you in? When did you join?
I had joined in 93.
Okay. So you were going in as I was coming out, but yeah. See, in my case, the Marine Corps chose me because I wanted a specific MOS, and so, but it was perfect. It was perfect for me. Yeah. I couldn't have been happier anywhere else. So.
Well, I know I wanted, and I think, if I remember right, maybe that's the same for me, is because I wanted to be security police, or I wanted to be a policeman.
Right.
And I think that's what they could secure and tell me that that's what I could have.
Yeah. So, yeah. See, the Air Force told me you just got to want Air Force. I said, no. And then Army or Navy, I can't remember who it was, said, well, let's get you the MEP station. I'm like, you saw my ASVAB score. I'm not stupid. You're not going to go turn me into a cook. No. But the Marine Corps, of course, back then, they don't have a lot of women. So he was dancing a jig. He's like, I will give you whatever you want. But yeah, it was like I said, it was perfect. So.
Well, I think that's basically the same story, if I remember right now, because. Well, once I got to Malmstrom, I was in the 341st Missile Wing, security police. So we basically took care of the missiles, or if they broke, if they had to fix them, the maintenance, and we had to go out and secure the sites and this and that. But I remember when I was getting discharged, because I had a debilitating knee injury when I was there. and I had three choices. I could get an honorable discharge, be a cook, or admin. So you go for this really intense, gung ho, arena, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, what?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no. No. Yeah. That would never have worked for me. I had the best job ever because I could do my, as they say, pogue time behind the desk, but I got out there and I rappelled and I hiked and marched and did all the things that they were doing. I mean, I just, and it was the best, it's like, okay, I can't do the office today. I'm going to go find something to cover. So yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, I missed it. I mean, I wanted to be a lifer. That was, once I got in there, I remember telling my dad, it's like, this is me. Like, this is everything I want. I love the short hair and just the structure, and given, I mean, you hear so many people like they call it you've got basic training and you got that side of the military, and then you've got like the real military. It's not always.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I spent 2 years stationed at Parris Island. So yeah, I heard all the, how this isn't the real fleet, and, because we always had pressed camis and all that kind of crap. And you're like, whatever. But yeah, I've heard it all. But anyway.
Listen, to this day, I still make my side of the bed and fold my clothes the same way. And
that's funny.
So it is a little funny.
What tickles me about that is that my first husband was Marine reconnaissance, and after 4 years we held hands walking the courtroom. No big deal. I think I don't think marriage is for me. Anyway, my second ex is he is Air Force, or was Air Force, but he's also my business partner now. He's the one who's written both Hero Harbor and my other app, and I told him I'm gonna punch him in the face if I ever hear him say this out loud. But he was stationed at Warner Robins, and he's from Augusta, so he was 2 hours from home. So he went home every weekend and played games while Mama cooked and did his laundry. And so he makes the comment that I didn't drink the Kool-Aid, and I'm like, given all that I do in the veteran community, I said, if you ever say that out loud, oh my God, because but he didn't. I mean, he was practically civilian. I mean, so when I think of Air Force, and of course my dad was out long before, I was old enough to know anything about it. When I think of Air Force, I don't think of even, I read the thing, it said knee, injury. I'm like, the Air Force? It's like, how does that happen? But he must have fallen downstairs or something. But, and I know that's not the case, but it's just funny that, the difference between, the mentality. Anyway, I find that music very, very, very different in your case, obviously. So
yeah, mine was playing football.
Yeah.
So I played softball for the base team and did some pretty cool things there, and then had just one of those things. And that ended up being my 7th knee surgery. So
grief.
I mean, it wasn't like I went into the Air Force with 6. So
I met somebody once who had 18, but he was a Navy SEAL. So who knows what he did. So yeah. 6'5", broad as a barn. So yeah, it's kind of like
a little bit of a badass.
Well, he thought so anyway. Anyway, there's something I was gonna say or ask. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, well, I guess you were saying before, talking about the structure and stuff. What I found, and this is not obviously 100% across the board, but the military doesn't turn us into the people that we are. We are the type of people that would be good in the military. We may not have known, but we were already the driven, the hard charging kind of, most of us overachiever type people, and perfectionist, all that kind of stuff. So
I agree 100%. I think it's certainly everyone has their reason to go in, much like mine, but I had the structure already built into me through sports and stuff. And I mean, you could definitely tell the people had zero structure in basic training, very quickly.
And you don't turn those people. I mean, they can have an acceptable career, but you don't turn them into those kind of people. We have, there was a guy that I worked with that 0 to 3 was the reg for his hair. He was always there. And so at night when he'd go to the clubs, it'd be all out and whatever. They were always, they
Right there.
second class PFT if they were lucky. They were, just that they were just getting by. We had an admin clerk who had 2 or 3 hash marks. I don't know. And he was in Lance Corps and E3, and he referred to himself as shitbird. I mean, he just knew that this was not his thing, And I mean, that every industry has that. So.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you get that. I mean, we've had that, and, they generally didn't last in one of my companies very long, but I mean, certainly, I give the same saying to every single person that, comes into the companies or whatever. It's like, listen, I give you enough rope to either hang yourself.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Or to pull yourself to the top.
Yeah.
So you do with it what you want.
Yeah. There was so there's a Navy SEAL, his name is Jocko, who does a podcast, and it was really surprising to me to hear him talking about buds and some of the that really weren't what you think of as SEAL quality. They made it through, but they still were not the the cream of the crop type thing. So it really, I mean, it doesn't matter, I mean, so hopefully the rest of the team doesn't end up carrying them, but yeah, there's always, those, but,
there's always some that slip through.
Yeah. But, okay. So you got injured, you got out.
I did. I got injured, got out. From that point, I had met my wife. She's from Great Falls, Montana. So, she stayed in Montana because she was finishing her nursing degree, and I was going back to Pennsylvania to have my knee surgery. Mm-hmm. And I remember her saying that she goes, I just figured that once you packed your truck and left, that was 36 hours in between us, like that's it.
Right.
So almost 25 years later.
That's awesome.
I don't know if we call it luck or.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of factors. There's
a whole lot. There is no doubt. But
so a couple of things with that. Darn it. Luckily I can edit this out. Well, okay. So talk about just. Oh, I know what it was. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to know is, you said that you wanted to be a lifer, and then that got cut short. So what was your experience when you first got out? I mean, was it a pretty simple transition, or did you struggle for a bit?
I struggled for a little bit because it was like, shit, what am I going to do now? Like, I went, because you fall right back into your old traits. So I ended up, I had to go home. I had to, get my knee operated on. And then I'm back in the exact same arena that
you're a different person now to an extent,
Yeah. So I did. I went, after my knee surgery, I went back to bouncing and, and all that. And but, that's where, the foundation of being married and my wife, we moved from Williamsport. We actually moved back to Montana, then back to Pennsylvania a couple times because of her job. She's a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, nursing wasn't huge, so it was really hard to find a job. So you went where you could. So when we were in Montana, I fell in love with. I was working with troubled teens because I certainly was no angel growing up. And so I was working at a detention center for juveniles, and then at a group home, and I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
So once we moved, we came back to Pennsylvania, and again, it was, what am I going to do? I had some college, so I went back to Penn State. I started, I was working as a personal trainer, and that, I think that's when the entrepreneur bug bit me, because our first daughter was being born, and I was working for this company, and she ended up having a lot of health issues, a couple holes in her heart and renal vein thrombosis, and she was life flighted at 3 days old, blah, blah, blah. And so, next thing you know, I'm finding myself without a job.
Mm-hmm.
And so I needed to reinvent myself pretty quickly. So I always had a construction background, and, I went to my wife and said, hey, I'm not really digging the college thing. I don't want to, I initially went to be a teacher because teachers were huge, back in, in 90 when I went. And then, so teachers were getting filled. So I was like, well, I'm going to go health and human development. And I was doing that. And because of because there I could work with troubled teens, but then I'm looking at myself and I'm just like, okay, I'm, getting so much older, and so my brain's working.
Right.
And so I've never been clinically diagnosed with ADHD, but like it's just like,
yeah. Today I finally got the VA to acknowledge that I am, because they've been trying to say I was bipolar for years, and I cannot take their mood drugs. I can't. I am fine. I am happy. I am grounded. You give me that crap, I start. Last time I ended up with a gun pointed in my head. Stay. But anyway, so yeah. So finally, today I went in.
You have that mindset,
Well, yeah, and I told him, and the thing is, we're different, and so the average person looks at us and go, seriously, and I got thinking recently, I was like, you know what? Just because I'm fast and you're slow, you need to speed up. I don't need to slow down,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was going to be my other question was, your wife and how that really, because I've discovered this with, several of these guys is that, it was real, and being the spouse is a lot of times a lot harder. Now, of course, you were out by then, but yeah, that getting through that is because it's huge. We go from having a uniform to not having a uniform to not know what the next thing is. And that's, you were talking about the reinventing yourself. And I think that might be one of the big things we get. It doesn't turn us into the type of personality, but what we do get is the problem solving, overcoming. It's like, okay, that didn't work. Let's go try this. But and the not giving up kind of thing. I think that's what a big part of what we get from there. So
for the military, absolutely. I mean, that instills I think there's different levels. I mean, I just always had that mentality, even in high school. The coach would tell you to run through a brick wall, you would try your hardest.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was able to take that with me to the military, and that just, sort of magnified that scenario in my head.
Yeah, you have the brute force mentality, but and then they teach you a smarter way of doing it. So the work hard, work smarter, not harder, whatever it is they say.
Yeah,
so.
Work smarter. Yeah. So, from there, it was just then finding my niche. We had, we went for a loan, went for a little SBA loan. The initial story I had said on another podcast, it was funny because I had the construction background. I had run backhoes, and loaded trailers and, built things, but I never drove a dump truck or anything. So it was funny because we wanted to go to get a business loan for a dump truck, a trailer, and a backhoe. Well, I didn't do one of the three. So I was playing softball for a guy who owned a logging company, and I went to my coach and I said, hey, can you guys teach me how to drive tractor trailer? And they're like, no. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like,
let me ask this a different way.
Yeah. They're like, Jake, like, do you have any idea like how much a transmission costs and a rear end costs? Like, you don't know how to drive. We can't afford to break those things.
Right.
Like, yeah, you're right. So it took a lot of research, to find out how to get my CDL without having the knowledge of driving trucks. So there was a company that had state vehicles that were automatic. So I was able to get my CDL that way. So I did a little bit more research and found out that Volvo had a air assisted dump truck that shifted just like a car, but it was a triaxle.
Right.
So the funny part of the story is my wife and I drove up to Erie to look at this truck, and we're living in State College, Pennsylvania, where Penn State's at. And so the salesman's showing me all the truck and all that. And he throws me the keys and he goes, let's take it for a ride. I throw it back and I'm all cocky. I'm like, nah, you drive. I'm the owner. I said, I'll never drive it. My employees will. Well, and the reason I had to say that is because I needed to watch him. So
that's funny.
I'm great at, I suck at reading directions.
Yeah.
But if I watch you, I'll pick it up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
See,
I love. Oh yeah, I have been an observer of human nature forever, and and fake it till you make it. Oh yeah, started out in fast food, faked my way into admin type thing, faked my. Oh yeah, yeah. you're smart and you can adapt, and I love that. I love that story. That's awesome.
So so I watched him intently, man. I was like watching what his foot does and everything, and got down, got the loan, and drove back up and picked it up, and drove it almost 4 hours home, and didn't have any problems, and I was working the next day making money.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Okay, so then what?
Oh, well then, so then I got bit by the bankruptcy bug, and it was, often. So when I talk to young entrepreneurs, everyone always asks, like, well, do you think having your education would have taught you, that issue that had happened? And I said no.
No. Mm-hmm.
I said because what ended up happening was, because Pennsylvania has winters, banks automatically, they're called these skips. So they'll make your loan like payments from say April until November. Well, then a lot of people don't work through the winter. Well, I didn't know that, so a friend owned a construction company, and he's, winter's coming up, and he said about, do you have skips? And I said, well, no, what are those? And he educated me. So he goes, well, call your banks, they probably, might modify your loan.
Right.
So I had 3 banks. 2 of them did. And the third one is a multi-billion dollar world company. And so I didn't get above anyone other than the person on the other line.
Yeah.
I asked the young lady the question, and first thing out of her mouth is, well, are you not going to be able to pay your loan?
Yeah. I
said, I didn't say that. I said, I'm new at this. This is what I'm told. Are you able to modify them? And she goes, well, it sounds like you're telling me that you're not going to be able to pay your loan.
Like, don't tell me what I'm telling you, lady. Answer my question.
So, and I said, I haven't missed the payment yet. I said, so is the answer no? And she goes, no, we don't modify loans.
Right.
I said, okay, there you go. Right hand to God. Literally weeks later, I'm getting a repo letter for my equipment. And I'm like, the hell's this? I call them, and they're like, well, you said you wouldn't be able to make your payment, so we're concerned, so we want our equipment back. I said, I've never missed a payment. And so I had to hire an attorney. They wouldn't work with her. And so finally she taught me, and she says, listen, you're going to have to declare bankruptcy to protect yourself and to hold on to your equipment so we can get this figured out. So, you go to court, and the only person that shows up in court to fight the bankruptcy is an attorney for this $1 billion company.
Right.
So I think I had like a $25,000 loan with them, something like that. And they showed up for that, and the judge went bonkers on him. Nice. He was completely on my side. Everything was taken care of right then and there, but he just couldn't understand their mentality.
Right.
And he gave me some advice, which we followed. And at that point in time, we kept running the company, because at that point in time you could restructure and all this and that. Right. And so we did. So that gave me enough time to restructure from, the heavy equipment side, because I still was doing construction, like building homes and, things like that, to, more bigger into that. So, it's there for a reason. And I was able to be educated in how to use it to protect yourself.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the most challenging part to me, is all the things you're expected to know. And it's like right now I'm trying to get registered as veteran owned. There's like half a dozen different ways. Anyway, but one of the things it's talking about, once proof of payroll, proof of taxes. It's like, we don't make any money. There is no payroll. There is no taxes. It's like there's nothing at this stage. I mean, we're Hero Harbor in particular is very, very new. I mean, we've only been in the store since November 4th, I think. So, but that's the frustrating part is, well, because not only do you have to figure out what's legit and what's not, because you got jokers coming at you saying, oh, pay this for this and this and this. And
oh my God, right.
Yeah, and so it's like you're one person, and of course, again, we exacerbate our problems by having 90 businesses. It's like, I've got, two different softwares, and I've got the podcast, and I've got I don't even know what I got, just too much. But the point is, so we make things worse for ourselves. But yeah, it's like this constant, that's the hard part, is not knowing the, the best way. And so I think the most valuable resource is just knowledge, is just, having the right people tell you the right things, because you'll have so many people giving you advice, but it's not always helpful, and trying to sort out what's legit, and figuring out, again, when you get so much stuff come in, it's like, okay, what do I pursue, what do I not?
Look at Google. I mean,
yeah,
you don't know what to believe on Google and all that. And listen, I'll disagree with you a little bit on that aspect, because I've used attorneys that unfortunately have gotten me into financial problems.
Oh yeah, I've gone that route too. Yeah.
Yeah, through bad advice or something like that. So
yeah.
You think you're getting, you're going to someone in their professional arena thinking.
Oh yeah, that's attorneys, doctors, everything. It's really frustrating knowing who. Yeah.
Well, hey, listen, and there again, I had a doctor who missed my cancer for 3 years.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So again, I think we've gotten in the mentality of like half-ass work, and so it's not. I'm not saying everybody, but
oh yeah, of course not. But it's just, you've got to weed through them, and you've got limited time, and you've got to, so referrals are, they're involvable. I mean, just yes, yeah. Oh yes, and that's why, and I think it was, maybe was it in your bio that that was said a couple of things talking about. Yes, this idea of it infuriates me, whether it be profit or nonprofit companies, but who, like with both of my apps, the foundation is verification, because I want to know you're a real person and you're the person you say you are. And right now it's easy because we're small, and I have personal relationships with all of these people, and that's been the best part. But dang it, I got off track there. Oh damn it, I do that all the time.
The red tape?
Well, no, it was. Oh, no, I know what it was. So I come across these, vetting. It's like, and the vetting process is give me $500. Kiss my bitch ass. And the thing is, and what frustrates me is that shows an incredible lack of creativity. I found on the VA site that they actually certify, veteran-owned businesses. There's a list of like 14,000 of them that I was able to download with their emails and their phone numbers and stuff like that. And so, I will reach out to them eventually. This event that I was telling Amanda about that we're working on, I will use people in that area to reach out to them. But the point is, we will do it legitimately, and everything that we do within the app, it's real people, and it's the people, and we have, you can put, veteran, this and that and that thing, but and they're all black tags. We put gold tags to show that we have verified, and there's no money, changing hands in that. It's just we do the vetting process. Yeah, that kind of stuff. You were talking about how the money, and this is in a lot of organizations, the money goes to the people at the top or whatever, and and the people who need it don't get it. And there was something else in the bio too, the idea that, oh my gosh, we suck at asking for help. It's like, there are so many things that are available to me, but it's like, I'm a business owner. There's no way that I can say, it's like, we are so proud, and it's frustrating.
So it's funny you say that, because listen, I am on the same train you are. There's some great organizations out there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Listen, there's good people and bad people and everything.
Of course.
And unfortunately, I've been lucky enough now that I've been able to pick myself up a few times and dust myself off and get back to the top. And I just chose Tattered Bean's mission because that's what I can do. Mm-hmm. We set the company up to run a specific way, and that's how I run my company. Mm-hmm.
So talk about that. Talk about Tattered Beans, how you decided on coffee, and what. And I know, again, according to that thing, that you give quite a bit of money directly back to the veteran community. So So talk about that.
So I always had we always tried to give back to vets in some way. My partner had houses, apartments and that down in the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and it's a rough area, and there's a lot of homeless vets, and we had tried to, much like you, with the VA, we had tried to work with the VA to get homeless vets rooms. We repositioned some apartments that fit this homeless requirement for them. And I mean, after 8 months of complete red tape and nothing happened,
and you wonder, it's like, do you really want to help?
Exactly. And at that point, we had to rent it out, because there was no end in sight, and that was at the regional level. I mean, my gosh, I couldn't even imagine. And this is what I would consider a little city compared to a New York or Chicago or Atlanta, stuff like that. But so I had a cafe, and actually that's where Amanda had first met, because she was our partner in it. And I said, listen, I want to do a from me to you program, whereas people will pay for half a smoothie and us as the cafe will give a sandwich, or someone can buy the sandwich and we'll give the smoothie. But either way, they got half a sandwich and a small smoothie. Right. And the people would then put their name and put a little card, and it took off. And the homeless, ate in the shop and all this and that. And we would then, get people to, buy more cards because they love the whole concept. And so, fast forward, we put we had built another location down in Lancaster. And when I was diagnosed with cancer in September, we ended up closing the cafes. And I had this, Amanda was running this coffee that was associated with the cafe. And we were a very successful Central PA fundraising coffee. So instead of, kids selling candy bars and stuff like that, they'd sell the coffee. And people loved it. It was different, and people drink coffee. So at that point, when we had closed the cafe because of my health, I had told Amanda, I said, we have a successful coffee, here, the blends. So I think we need to reinvent it. I said, I want to give something back to veterans. So I sat down, I, pitched her the idea, and said, this is how I want it to work. And so she got me all the numbers. I found out, what we were charging previously, what, what I would consider competition, what they're charging. I said this would be an online venture only. So we looked at that, and we came up with the price of $12 a bag, and $4 of that goes to the vet that the person shops under, and we run the company on $1.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so, like you said, it was, it's nice to hear you say, because you actually just, touched on a part that's been the toughest for us, and that's to get by the ego of not taking help. And I don't like to use, even though we are a direct donation, company, other people have looked at this from like, well, wait a minute, can be a secondary income to me. Like I have my own profile, my own link. I can tell people to buy coffee under my link, and I make money off of this.
Right.
Comparative to looking at it like a donation, because like you said, we're very proud people. We're taught to fight. We're taught to never give up. We're, so even if we're down to our last penny, like we're gonna fight, and we're gonna,
if I think somebody else needs that penny more than I do, then I'm gonna make sure they have it. Yeah,
absolutely. And we're gonna pull up our bootstraps, because that's what we're taught, and we're gonna keep going. Right. So with that said, the hardest thing is we're not getting vets to put their profiles on the website. And, so that's my pitch now is, get signed up, because I'm going to be brutally honest here, and I'm going to get my balls broke, I'm sure. But, how many friends do you know that have signed up for some type of multi-level marketing scam? Right? You just listen, people, you can't see the video, but she just tilted her head back. So listen, if you're on Facebook, how many of your same friends, let's say you have 1,000 friends, how many of those 1,000 friends are selling the same saran wrap that you wrap around your belly to tell you that you're going to lose weight?
Yeah, and of course the Amways and all those are still out there, and yeah,
right?
it's like,
okay, so you have to go and you got to invest in them.
mm-hmm.
So here are these military families looking for their wife who stays home and stuff like that to have a secondary income that she can do on the computer, while she's taking care of the kids or the husband's taking care of the kids or something, right? So now here comes Tattered Beans. And Tattered Beans says, listen, you don't have to buy any product.
Right.
You don't have to do anything. You don't have to store it. You don't have to meet a minimum purchase each month. Listen, just go give your link to somebody and sit back and collect free money.
Right. Right.
Because that's how I choose to run my company. I'm lucky enough to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And so that's where now we're changing our motto from that standpoint to try to teach people, like, listen, this can be a secondary income from you, right, if you looked at it that way, mm-hmm, instead of a donation.
Right. So what Tattered Beans? How'd you get that name?
Well, there was if you saw any of my tattoos, there
are a few. There's a few.
I do have a few.
Mm-hmm.
I like old tattered things. Like we live
loved.
Yeah,
some of the best toys, the dog toys, the kids' toys that they have. Oh my gosh, they don't even recognizable. My business partner has a story about his brother who carried this blanket, and it was shreds, but it was his thing,
Yeah.
And yeah, he just had to keep gathering up all the pieces, and yeah.
But because I wanted to help vets of all ages, mm-hmm, a lot of lives, and this is the serious part of it. I know I sort of joked about my tattoos and my process, but in all reality, Dawn, it was, a lot of lives of veterans have been tattered, because of war. Like you said, you got PTSD and, amputees and, and listen, even if we're not at war, there's still, people that go on deployment that have to spend, time away from their family and miss birthdays. And so a lot of lives, get tattered. And so the meaning to me is the fight that they have given, for those situations. Mm-hmm. And that's why we came up with the fourth quarter strong blend, because, in football, you always, see it at the fourth quarter, they're holding up their fingers because you're supposed to, this is where you got to reach deep, right, you got to give everything and everything. And you're a Marine. So, how many times are these guys and these young men and women and, and they've been in war and they've been in situations and, and you got to reach deep and you got to give it all. You're on the front line and, bullets and shit's zinging by your head and, and
other people are depending on you.
Correct. And you gotta reach deep, like it's the fourth quarter. You got to give it your all. And so we made our strongest coffee blend, which I will say I'll put up against anybody's strength wise. And that's our fourth quarter strong, because we understand, because I've been through it. I've been through the sports aspect of it. I'm not a wartime vet. And that's the first thing I tell these really badass, vets, like, listen, I've got so much admiration and respect for you, Isn't
it funny? I found that recently. Now, I did take part in Desert Storm, but when I hear it is hard. It is hard, these stories that I hear with these guys sometimes, and I have found myself kind of feeling like my service wasn't enough. Just like humbled.
Right.
Humbled.
I am very humbled.
My master guns from when I was in tech school, I think the Air Force calls it, but whatever it is, Denfos, he sent me just recently a video, and it plays at the museum at Parris Island, and it interviews a number of Marines over the years, it doesn't matter. The senator who was walked on the moon. What, I can't think of his name. Anyway, but anyway, one of the guys that they interviewed was an officer, and he was fighting alongside his men. A rocket or something comes in and shoots off both of his arms and injures his leg. He manages to get back to his vehicle, but he's standing there. And how you even think like this in that circumstance, but he's thinking, okay, I have no hands, so I can't bandage my leg. I have no hands. I can't fire. I can't shoot. What can I do? And he's hemorrhaging blood. Oh my God. But anyway, he says, I'm an officer. I can lead. And so he goes and he leads his people till they get out of this. And so somewhere along later in the video, somebody asks him, how did you not go into shock? And he said, my men needed me, And
Right.
so for me, I hear this. And that's not, that's not just Marines. I mean, we are a special kind of crazy, but it's, it's just, yeah. But I have a Ranger friend, a couple of Rangers who, and it's the same thing. The one guy, he has a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star, and he's back. He's civilian now, but he's back in Afghanistan doing his thing. It just was like, we don't know any differently. And so, yeah, I hear these stories and I'm incredibly humbled. The one thing for me is that I know, had I been given that opportunity, had I been asked to do that or allowed to do that, I'd have done it. I'd have been out there. And we're lucky, because I'm a pretty lousy shot. I'd have had to have a really big gun with lots of bullets because I'm not very accurate. But the point is, if I had been allowed, I would have done it. So, that's the kind of, but yes, it's shocking to me that I could, regret, and yet I would tell anyone else, all of our jobs matter. And I've said this, and this is something too. I said, you can spend 20, 30 years and be an amazing airman, soldier, Marine, sailor.
Yep.
Get them all?
Yep.
And coasties. I don't even know what coasties do, but you can be, a perfectly good or actually, excellent at your job, but never be a combat type person.
For sure. Absolutely.
And my belief is, and I someday want to write a book about this. I want to, start interviewing these guys who have gone back over and over, or their families, people who didn't have to go and went, or anyway, point is, my belief is that those of us who can do that, who are able to for whatever, to function in that chaos, we do it for those who can't. And that's perfectly fine, because like you said, you didn't want to be an admin person. That wasn't your thing, So everybody has their role, and they're all equally important, because, the badasses can't do their jobs without the other people supporting them,
Well,
they will tell you they can, but the truth is, that equipment comes from somewhere.
It's funny you say that, because we were picking up, we went to pick up our single serve pods just recently, and we were leaving after our meeting and all that, and there was a truck driver there, and he was looking at my Jeep, and it's pretty decked out, and we're talking, and at the end I shake his hand and I said, you know what, thank you for everything that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks at me and he goes, what do you mean? And I told him the story. I said, listen, I said, these boxes right here are filled with coffee. And this is, I'm telling him my story about Tattered Beans.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, just so you realize, you're helping as much as I am.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, and he's still looking at me like, dude, you're a fool. And I'm like, you are delivering, he had boxes on. I said, you literally are delivering the boxes that are going into these. And I said, without truck drivers like yourself, I said, things like this couldn't happen. And I said, it's truck drivers like you that basically run America. And, because doctors couldn't operate because, the shit won't be there to the beds, the equipment, the lights, everything.
And that's a lonely lifestyle. That is a really lonely lifestyle.
And he looked at me, and when we shook hands, and he just said, thank you. He goes, I've never heard that before.
That's awesome.
I'm like, that's a damn shame.
I know. Oh, and that's the thing. It's like I say I'm a chronic compulsive complimenter. I can't help it. I will chase you down to give you a compliment. But that's the thing. It's like, and I will find some way of saying that. It's like, no, it all matters. We all are intertwined and we all need each other. And the thing is, if we would quit hating and quit being angry and just smile, just hug, just care,
Hey,
it would be a different world,
Dawn, do you know how many people have tried to bait me on other veteran coffee companies? And I'm like, dude, I'm seasoned. It ain't happening.
See, and this is the thing, and this is, and I don't, people who, it's like, look, if I'm not for you, and this is personally, professionally, whatever, please just tell me now so I can move on.
Yep.
But I am so solid, and because, and I've written a book. It's called Honestly Speaking. It's a self-help book, not any big deal. At some point, I'm going to write Honestly Speaking Sex. But one of the things I'm going to write is Honestly Speaking Business when all of this is up, and because people need to know that you can be stupidly successul and you don't have to cheat people or treat people badly to do it. You just have to be creative. You have to put the people first. And as I said, that's been the most just, I have no words to describe how amazing it's been. These men and women who have stepped out from Instagram and whatever, and who have joined the app. And I've got a couple of them now. One of them's Navy, and another is a Marine. They're working on helping me put together this event at the end of July. We're planning, and that's these. And I've done, I don't even know how many interviews at this point, and it is the most amazing thing. We were talking about some of these people and the horrific things. If there's an interview, it's split in two parts. His name is Rick Stevens. He talks about, in the first half of his interview, he talks about in the course of 2 days losing 6 of his friends. One, he said, inside parts on the outside. The second one, there was 5 of them caught in a piece of machinery. Anyway, they burned on fire. They couldn't. Anyway, it led to him drinking, and then later drugs and all this kind of stuff. And now he talks. We have not met, and we didn't do the video part. It was just, so I have not seen him. But the person who introduced us, Rick keeps saying to that person, it's like, when are we going to get to Orlando to see Dawn? I really want to meet Dawn. And that is just the most and to have these people believe in you because you touch lives. And it's like, for us, there's nothing better. And so the point is that you know that you will succeed, and you you even had.
I'm trying to swim. My phone's gonna die, so I'm trying to get this on my computer.
Oh, okay. Because we can pause and come back if you want to do that.
Let me.
Yeah, let's hang up and let you you do what you need to do, and then you call me back.
Okay.
Because we can wrap up. We can go for 3 more hours, or we can wrap up.
No, I love this.
I do.
Listen, these are what makes the best podcasts because they're. Real quick though, what do you have me under? Do you have me under JCJ?
On Skype?
Yeah.
No, it's Jason Jean 1734, I think, or something.
Okay, that's what I'll switch over to.
Okay.
Perfect.
But yeah, and that's, like I said, and the cool thing too is, like, talking about that Rick interview, I played that recently for a young civilian person, and he has no idea. I mean, that's the idea. These stories, that is beyond their ability to comprehend. And so they listened to it, and we got to the end of the first half, and it just, cuts off. And he's like, wait, there's more. Tell me there's a second half. I was like, yes, there's a second half. But that's, when you can, the other thing is that Rick, he had this idea and this dream of his own nonprofit, but it was just kind of there on the back burner. Well, since I'm, already been working on that, I had, sort of the resources up front. And so I helped him. We got on a call on a Sunday, and I helped him walk through that. And, I don't do it for the gratification, but it's just what comes natural from it. And I've said that, I do not believe that there's any such thing as a selfless act, with the exception of throwing yourself on a grenade or a bullet where you're not around to appreciate it. Anything we do that makes someone else happy, we get a certain amount of pleasure from that. And it just, some of us are even more in tune. I'm not capable of screwing people over. I just can't. It's just not in my DNA. I've spent my entire life, protecting and just, whatever. And so and that's why your job, and it may take time. We may not be this overnight success, but when you've got the right heart and the right mission and the right people on board, you will succeed because people are touched by that, by that mission and by that emotion and such. And so you might have to work a little harder, but I think that there's slowly a trend and a shift that there's becoming more people like us. So I've met a few anyway, but.
Well, and it's funny you say that, because here's the thing, because, people have asked me, a lot. I know a lot about the internet. I've had many very successful companies that, are just strictly internet based. So I can go and backlog different people's websites. I know exactly how they're getting to where they're at. I know roughly about the amount of money that they're paying, to be where they're at. My thing is, and maybe it's my age, because I'm 47, is that there is nothing better than to grow your business old school, grassroots, shake people's hands, let people get to know you. So by far, doing, watching your success and being a part of your success only magnifies our success, because of the because what you're doing with your business and what we're doing with ours. But again, I think, it's a lot of it is because, I'm 47 and, I've got grown daughters, and, I've gone through the, I've owned businesses where, my kids had to, not necessarily be embarrassed, but people were like, so, I've been at that scenario where these younger entrepreneurs, back at least then, we didn't have the internet.
Right. Yeah.
So now, these entrepreneurs, they're doing stupid shit on Instagram. They're doing stupid shit on this platform and that platform. Well, guess what? Your daughter's 2 right now. When she's 12, that video is going to come back to bite you in the ass.
Yeah. That was something I was thinking about earlier when we were talking too, is when we were talking about challenges, is the challenge of skepticism, because there are so many organizations, and that's, again, as we were saying, where the human element comes in. I can post just meme type shit all day long, and it's going to get some attention. But when I post stuff that is, I have one picture, and I have to this day no idea why, but it got almost 4,200 likes. My theory is that because it was a picture of me and 2 other women in uniform right before we deployed. We were at Lejeune before we deployed to Desert Storm. What I think it is that there's so many Desert Storm era veterans that, because a lot of them commented on the cookie dough camis and stuff, and I think a lot of them are kind of feeling like forgotten about or unappreciated. Everything is now about OEF and whatever. And so I think it was just a little bit of nostalgia. It had nothing in, it's not any kind of, fabulous picture or anything. But the point is that when I post stuff that's personal, when I say that, I set out my goals, for whatever, that's where it's come in. And people can understand human, and people can understand, but they don't trust the other side, the corporate side. And so you have to work especially hard to come, because look how many, I don't know, I didn't take a close look at your IG account, but how many times do we get just follow me, I'll follow you. We serve veterans, but they're not veteran owned, and and it's like, what, you're going to have to do a lot more than that to convince me, because it just, I don't care about collecting numbers. I care about the right people. But yeah, it's that human thing. When you start, when you start getting touching hearts and touching that, and again, it's that whole, they become your evangelist. I mean, Matt is down there in Sarasota where he is, his PTSD, if they call it a sandbox group. Anyway, he's always talking about us, and that he played his interview for them and that kind of thing. And once you have that, then they help you carry that pack, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Thank you for spending this time with us. If you enjoyed the content we shared with you, please subscribe, review, and share this show with your friends. Veramore, the dating app, and Hero Harbor, the social connection tool for heroes, are both in the app stores. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as Veramore, Veramore_app, or Hero Harbor.